Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining Jen Hoverstad and me on today's TheShow.Live. Every single day in the United States, 9 people are killed because of distracted driving. Over 1,500 people are injured every single day because of distracted driving. Each year, between 3,000 and 4,000 people are killed, and depending on the numbers, anywhere from 400,000 to 500,000 people are seriously injured because of distracted driving. Every single second, Jennifer, in the United States during daylight hours, statistics show that there are over 600,000 people operating a motor vehicle with a mobile device, primarily a cell phone or smartphone, in their hand, participating in distracted driving. And it's just mind-blowing. And that's one reason Jennifer and I wanted to do today's show, to help raise awareness, to help talk about this important issue, and primarily to steer it back to the problem that we're seeing more and more, and that is live streaming, periscoping, Blab, Meerkat, whatever it might be, and driving. So Jen, that's what today's show is all about. It's so good to see you today. How are you doing?
It's good to see you. And, I am really excited to talk about kind of do something a little different today on TheShow.Live, and we'll get to that in just a second. But, really provide, hopefully this is a catalyst for conversations where everyone here can go out and take some talking points out into your own community. So the goal is that it doesn't stop on Blab and we just have a great conversation. The goal is that Mitch and I can create this little toolkit for everyone to now go out and take to wherever you are throughout the world, and really discuss the importance of concentrated driving and not live streaming, not texting while driving.
It's going to be a good show, and we're going to invite all of you to jump in the seat and join us today and share your thoughts, your experiences, ask your questions. Let's have a conversation. Let's raise awareness. I'd like to raise awareness with 2 things right off the bat, Jennifer. We have iSocial Cop in the house, okay? And for those of you that don't know Mike Byer, he's a local police officer who he and his officers are going to be guests in 2 weeks on the show.live. But Mike will, if we can get him in the seat, I don't know if he's out and about, if he's on the job, if he's on the beat right now, but Mike is a strong proponent of not live streaming and driving. So Mike, it's good to see you in the audience. Everybody follow iSocial Cop, if you would, please. One other little change with respect to today is that we originally had Gary Vaynerchuk, CEO of VaynerMedia, scheduled to join us today. Gary reached out late Thursday afternoon and just felt sick about having to reschedule. Something came up. It was beyond control. Long story short, everybody, he has rescheduled for July. We may bring him in a little bit earlier, depending on our schedules. I've shared Gary's link over in the comments. If you click on that, it's the same link. If you've already RSVP'd, you're not going to miss the show. But he asked us to let everyone know he's very, very sorry for not being able to join us today, and he's looking forward to joining all of us, especially you, the audience, on the show.live in July. So click the link to get the latest date. I think it's July 11th, if I'm not mistaken. And but be that as it may, it opened up the door for us to talk a little bit about distracted driving, and it opened up the door to share a concern that I've had, especially with big-time, well-known influencers, guys, live streaming influencers that are still live streaming and driving.
And Mitch, I was just that's a great segue as far as influencers, is that you were recognized as an influencer recently in this little article titled "The 12 Rising Stars of Social Media." So, if anyone, what we're going to be talking about today, I'm going to throw this link in the chat, but, certainly if anyone can categorize themselves as an influencer, that is now you, my friend. And I thought it was so well written. They did a great job on that.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. The takeaway for me is it's okay, you guys, to be a little bit older in life and still be considered a rising star. In my world, I'm just happy to wake up on the top side of the grass, okay? So listen, guys, but that's, Jennifer, that's one of the issues with this particular topic is I know some people feel that they have the ability for whatever reason to stream and drive. And maybe they do. Maybe they don't fall into the statistics here. Maybe they're better drivers than everybody else on the planet. And you and I both know that's not the case. But the reality is, if they won't stop for themselves, if all of us won't stop streaming and driving for ourselves, let's do it for everyone else. Let's do it for people that are looking up to us and watching us. Let's do it to protect other families and other children and other drivers. You know, you're setting an example for other people. So if you're streaming and driving and people see you do this, they're going to think it's okay to do it too. And before we go too far into the show, for those of you that, most of you know my co-host, Jennifer Hoverstad, but let me just share with you, Jennifer is the operations and project manager and brand evangelist for O3, a digital communications agency servicing clients around the world. And it's just been a real treat, Jennifer, to co-host this show with you. It's been a lot of fun. I think we've had some good dialogue. The audience has been very responsive, and it's great to see you today. Before we dive into the meat of today's show, how was your weekend? Did you do anything crazy? Were you upside down doing difficult yoga poses? Were you out tasting?
This morning.
This morning, okay.
This weekend, we did do quite a bit of brewery hopping, but of course, along with today's show, always making sure that we were drinking responsibly. So yeah, I did some traveling. You know, last week I mentioned it was my 5-year law school reunion over the weekend, and so had the opportunity to go to more central North Carolina, where Greensboro is. Some of you may have heard of the university there, UNCG, not too far from Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem. But yeah, so we had a great time there, tried a handful of new breweries along the way, and turns out we were able to spend about 24 hours kind of out and about, also in celebration of our anniversary, which is tomorrow. So our 8th wedding anniversary is tomorrow. Yeah. So
happy anniversary. Congratulations. I think we need to give you a high five.
Thank you guys. High fiving you all right back.
Awesome. Good for you.
So yeah, no, it was, thank you guys very much. I appreciate that. So yeah, it was a great weekend and really enjoyed it. Sounds like you got to get out and enjoy the fresh air as well, Mitch.
It was nice. It rained on Saturday, but we played soccer on Saturday and Sunday, and the boys just played one of the best games of the season on Saturday. Garrett had 2 goals and 3 assists. I was so proud of how well he and his teammates played. And then we were out in the hot sun yesterday, and it was just gorgeous. It was hot. It was a great game. We ended up sweeping the weekend with a couple of W's, so it was fun. And but I've been looking forward to today's show, Jennifer. And you know, let's dive right in, because I want to open up the seats. Before we do, we normally talk about sponsors, and we're fortunate to have people and companies that are sponsoring today's show. Little different twist at my end today. What I want to do is I'd like to recognize a couple of groups and a couple of organizations that are doing amazing things for distracted driving and raising awareness for distracted driving. Joel Feldman, who's a lawyer, tragically lost his daughter, Casey, to a distracted driver. She was in a crosswalk following the law, and a distracted driver was looking down and wasn't watching where he or she was going, and caused the untimely death of his daughter, Casey. And what Joel and his family have done is they've set up the Casey Feldman Foundation, and I'll share the link over on the right, Jennifer, in a couple of minutes, to help honor Casey and help raise awareness to the dangers of distracted driving. And they've also set up EndDD, short for enddistracteddriving.org, which is a great site to go to, everyone. If you'd like statistics, information, if you'd like presentations, if you'd like to get involved with sharing with the local schools, with local communities, the dangers of distracted driving. They do so in a way that's based upon education. They're not pointing fingers at anybody, but they're asking people to really be aware of the dangers so that what happened to them doesn't happen to you or your family. So we're honored to dedicate today's show to the Feldman family, to enddd.org, and to the Casey Feldman Foundation website. And once again, I'll put the links over on the right.
Excellent. And certainly acknowledge the organizations that we are supporting today that Mitch just mentioned, but also I see two of our weekly sponsors also in the chat. So it goes without saying, Archon Mounts for supporting us and providing some wonderful equipment that they do, all an assortment of high quality mobile mounting products, certainly that come in helpful when you are not driving. Although I do know they probably provide some things that you could utilize in the car, not for live streaming though. But thank you, Archon Mounts. And then, of course, also rightside.co is in the room as well. And Mark Go with Rightside. And that's how we got the show.live, because Rightside provides that .live domain name that we were looking for to make the show special. So thank both of you for your support, and thanks for being here today. We really appreciate it.
I'll be using my Archon mount this evening at a Rotary function where I'll be speaking to Rotarians about using social media. But what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about the new Facebook Live. And I'll be live streaming my portion using my Archon mount and showing the audience and live streaming Jennifer, which is really cool for our audience. Check out the new updates with Facebook Live, you guys, because we'll be live streaming to the Rotary International group that has almost 10,000 members in it. That's huge.
That's cool. Yeah,
and thanks to Archon Mounts, I'll be able to do it professionally, effectively. And I have a feeling everyone's going to come up and go, "What are you holding in your hand? That's really cool." So I've got you covered, Archon.
Great equipment. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's roll into today's show. I think let me just start off, you guys, with, and I'm going to open the seat and in a couple of minutes, and we'll invite our guest in. You know, the reality with distracted driving is years ago on my way into the office, Jennifer, it's about a 20-minute drive for me, and I would mount my smartphone up on the dash on a suction cup type of mount, and I do a 5 or 10-minute video on the way in, usually illegal stuff, and I never really thought about it being distracted driving, okay? And with coming across Joel Feldman's tragic story and all of the great things that he's doing, it really, the light bulb went on, and I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. I didn't realize that even though I'm not holding something in my hand, it's still distracted driving. And I've gone back, you guys, and I've tried to delete every single video I've ever shot of me operating a motor vehicle with some kind of camera mount set up. Okay, I'm trying to walk my talk. And the idea here is become aware of what distracted driving is. There are 3 different types of distracted driving, you guys. Okay, the first type is visually taking your eyes off the road. That's one type of distracted driving. And when you've got a camera mounted on a suction cup on your dash and you're looking over, you're not paying attention to what's going on. Number 2, it's manual, taking your hands off the wheel. When you reach over and you touch a radio dial, you check the seatbelt of a car seat, you're taking your hands off the wheel. That's another type of distracted driving. And number 3, cognitive, taking your mind off of the task at hand, and that is driving an automobile. A lot of people, Jennifer, don't realize there are 3 different types of distracted driving. And so one of the, I think, highlights of today's show is we can share that information with people and let them know that it's just not driving and doing this while you're driving. Right? So everyone needs to be aware of that.
Yeah. And, you know, Mitch, I think the first thing that came to mind for me, you know, facts and figures make an impact, but actually hearing those true stories of the people who have been affected, I think have left the biggest impact on me. But seeing it in action, you know, Mitch, after you and I met and we attended Summit Live in San Francisco in January, I remember on my way to the airport, I jumped on Periscope and saw that there was a woman periscoping on her way out of San Francisco who was live in the car driving North California. And I actually typed to her, I was like, stop live streaming and driving. And she could see what I was saying. And she was saying, oh, it's fine. I'm not really reading the comments anyway. And I was like, no, you just read my comments. You are reading the comments. Like, stop lying to yourself. And so it's things like that where, you know, just doing it makes an impact, and then saying, like, justifying it, making excuses. There's all different ways you can do it, but it's something that needs to be addressed, and we need to call each other out on it. It's very important that we try to influence each other and set each other straight. So, I social cop. I saw you weren't feeling well, so we won't keep you on too long, but thanks for jumping in today.
Mike's a tough guy.
Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Oh,
Thanks
fantastic,
for coming in.
Mike. So what's your tolerance level? You're on the beat and you see some knucklehead drive by live streaming, his activities to the world. Are there consequences, Mike?
Yeah, there are. And I'm going to make this really quick because my head, I think there's a sledgehammer being pounded into my head right now. My throat is killing me, but I love you guys so much that I just
Thank you.
I slithered out of bed and came down the stairs and tripped over the lightsaber. That's another thing. Anyways, I'm going to make it really quick. I just want to address a couple things. One is, Archon mounts, and no, I'm not paid for them, but I use all their products, both at home and in my wife's car, my car, the patrol car, the desk at work. They're awesome. Get them. How long does a lightsaber take to turn off?
Don't worry about it, Mike. It's not that loud.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Yeah, Archon mounts love their products. That's number one. Number two, zero tolerance level when I stop somebody from messing with the phone. I just sighted a young lady last week. I was next to her. I look over at her. I'm looking at her like begging, please look at me. Please look at me. Realize there's a police car over there, please. Because usually sometimes I try to be the cool dude and just go, shame. And, people immediately throw it down. And it's enough of a warning. She didn't look. So, I wrote her a citation for it. Police officers, we have so much equipment in our car, from the computer to the light control switch, the radio, just keeping our own selves alive, looking out for people crashing into us, looking at what other people are doing. And so even police officers have to be cognizant. I don't care if you're a police officer or not. You need to be aware of distracted driving. And Lord knows we have a lot of distracted driving going on in that police car.
Right.
So I'm not saying that we're trained professionals in it, because we make mistakes all the time too, but we have to be just as cognizant and aware of it.
Mike, do you have any stories, personal stories that you've come up onto an accident scene? I know I do as a lawyer, and we don't need to go into names and specifics, but can you share just one or two stories before you pop off with our audience as a police officer investigating a serious collision or even a death collision because of distracted driving here in Southern California?
Yeah, and I actually had that was July. I had a bad one where someone was sure enough messing with the phone, didn't realize they were veering, and they ran right into the back of a truck, not a regular truck, a box panel truck with all that hardcore metal steel that keeps that stuff up there. And they're really fortunate that metal didn't go right through the windshield and take their face out and their head off.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a game changer.
And I actually have photos, and maybe when I come on the show in 2 weeks, I'll have those photos for you. But yeah, please just don't do it. It's you talked about that lawyer and the fact I can't even imagine losing my daughter. And
Joel's doing an amazing job, Mike. I don't know if you guys have connected, but I'll put you in touch with him. But they're speaking around the country at different organizations, primarily high schools, educating teenage drivers, which is a huge problem, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And we as parents, whether we're parents, whether you're not a parent, maybe you're just somebody in the community, no matter who you are, maybe you're just a boss. You don't have kids, but you have young teens that are following you. And when they watch you leave work, see you on the phone or whatever, you're modeling for people. We all as adults, and especially conscious adults that are involved in social media, we all need to show the safe and proper use of our mobile devices and social media. And when Jen, you're actually you're absolutely right as Mitch being a thought leader, and Jen, you're a thought leader. And you know what? I'm a thought leader when it comes to distracted driver. We're all thought leaders because we need to be exemplifying the right behavior all the time. And one of the things why police officers, people get upset with us because we write tickets, and Mitch knows I don't like writing tickets. That's not my thing. My thing is, every cop has their thing, whether it's investigating gang crimes or drug things. My thing is just public relations, community policing, getting into the community and teaching people what we really do. And what people need to understand is when that 911 call comes in and we're responding, and I got to tell you, I'm just so sick and tired of responding to those calls, and I get there and it's a bloody freaking mess inside of the car. those are scars that I have to take to my grave, because I can't come home and tell my wife, "You're not going to believe what happened. Check what I saw." And those are not things we don't reveal to people.
Right.
When you look at especially kids and you see the mangled bodies and all that crap, it burns on our scars. And then we take that and we leave the scene and we go and knock on the door of the parents.
Mm-hmm.
That's the worst nightmare in the world.
All right. So look, don't get mad at cops because we're writing tickets for distracted driving. Think about, if you get a ticket, all the people that are in here, if you get a ticket for something, whatever it is, just think of all the times you got away with something that you didn't get a ticket.
Right. Exactly. And I think this is a great segue into Liz's question here. And Liz is a friend of mine here in the Raleigh area. And North Carolina does not have a hands-free law. And so she just wants to know your opinion with hands-free laws. Like, do you feel like they help lessen distracted driving? Is there a preventative measure there, or has it made an impact?
I can only speak off of my personal experience. Anything makes an impact. Has it made as big of an impact as I wish? No. Mm-hmm. And I think the only way we're going to do that is through technological advances. I know that Verizon has come out with something, I think what is it called? The Hum or something like that, where it'll notify certain driving characteristics of their teens. Mm-hmm. But I think we need to, there are some apps out there that I think either are out or they're thinking about that when teens are, touching that hands-free device for their texting, yet the GPS is registering that they're mobile in a vehicle, that it sends a message to mom and dad. And then, they're going to get it when they get home. Mm-hmm. But, I know Australia is doing something right now where they have a full phone mount. Listen up, Archon Mounts. I know he's in the house. I hope he's still is. There's a phone mount being made in Australia where if you put the phone in the mount and it stays in there while it's rolling and you don't touch anything, you rack up points. And over a certain amount of points, you get free music downloads, free dinners, that type of thing. So interesting concept that they've got. If you remove it from the mount, you don't get any points. So I think we just have to go there. And guys, I got to get out of here. I am dying.
Mike, before you leave, I've shared your link over in the comments. Everyone join us in 2 weeks. We're going to have, hopefully, Mike, you'll be joining us, some of your other officers, law enforcement officers, using social media, using live streaming to build goodwill and educate and bond with the community. Mike, get better soon, my friend. I'll see you in San Diego, right?
Yes, that's correct. And Jen, thank you very much. Love what you're doing over there. And
thank you.
All right, I'm going to slither back up
Feel
the
better.
stairs.
Take care. So our seats, we're going to unlock the seat if you guys want to come in. Listen, my take on this, similar to Mike, I've had probably a dozen cases over the last 10 years of people texting and driving and causing accidents, causing fatalities. And one of the cases I talked to Mike about, Jen, was a truck driver reaching down. He dropped his cell phone. He was reaching down to his left. It jammed between his seat and the door. Of course, while he's looking down, he ran through a red light. And our client, who survived, every bone in her body was broken, 4 or 5 major surgeries. It was a life-changing event that even the driver of the truck felt bad about. He admitted as to what happened, but it doesn't change what happened to her. And, so my take on this is, while you're driving an automobile, turn your phone off, put it in the glove box, put it in the seat holder, get it out of your way. Everything can wait until you stop, until you get out of your car, until you get into the office, until you're walking down the sidewalk. When you try to use even a hands-free device in your vehicle, you're distracted. And I know, and so just keep that in mind, everyone. You're not paying attention to where you're going. Before we bring our next caller in for the open seat, here's the statistic, you guys, that just blew me away. The average distraction time period is about 5 seconds. Okay. In fact, according to the National Highway Safety Committee, they're saying it might actually be closer to 15 or 20 seconds by the time you mentally focus your attention back to the task at hand. But the general amount of time that passes while you're looking down at your cell phone or you're live streaming, it's about 5 seconds. At 50, 55 miles an hour, over 5 seconds, that's like traveling the length of a football field blindfolded. Okay, it's not okay to do that. And I liked Nicole Abood, who's a lawyer up in Los Angeles, over in the comments. She commented a little while ago, if you see somebody live streaming and driving and you're on their show or you're watching them on Periscope, the best thing to do is if you're talking to them, just remind them that it's not okay to do and then get off the show. We don't have to be rude. We don't have to be a-holes about it, but just don't encourage, don't support anyone that's live streaming and driving, and don't do it yourself. That would be my takeaway.
I agree. And I think I've put a link here. I was actually hoping a different picture would show up into this link. This is an accident that happened in the Raleigh area. Wake Forest is just outside of Raleigh, about a week or two ago, where a high school teacher was killed. And now what they are suspecting is that the man who was driving the dump truck that ran this woman's minivan into the back of a tractor trailer and effectively left nothing of her minivan. They're saying that it's very possible that he was on his phone, which is why they're now searching his phone. And so while that certainly has not been proven yet, it is a very real possibility based on what they're finding out. You know, as I was preparing for today's lab, Mitch, I just did a quick Google search on, let's see, my exact keyword, stories of distracted driving. And I'm just going to place that link here because it is story after story. Mother shares horrifying distracted driving story. Grieving mom, I lost my son to distracted driving. 14-year-old boy killed by distracted driver. Distracted driving pictures, videos, breaking news. Families of distracted driving victims share stories of pain. It goes on and on and on. And I think that, certainly a lot of us, and I think Sue mentioned this earlier in the comments saying, you know what, no one thinks it can happen to them until it actually does happen to them. But these are everyday people simply driving to and from home, to and from work, maybe going to visit a friend. This is not, this is not anybody doing anything out of the ordinary. This is like an everyday life choice that people are making. And typically it is those people, similar to what we see with drunk driving, it is the people that are following the rules, that are following the laws, that actually end up losing their lives because someone makes a very poor choice on the other side.
Aaron from Archon Mounts, how are you?
I'm doing great, Mitch. Jen, how you guys doing?
Great, Aaron. Thank you so much for being here today.
You guys are talking about my favorite topic because unfortunately there are far too many people out there who are scoping and driving these days. And in fact, 2 weeks ago at the Perry Union, I was one of the speakers at that event. We sponsored that event, and that was specifically my topic. And when I signed up to speak on this particular topic, I said there's probably nobody out there who's more qualified to speak on this topic because as a company, number one, we have sold more than 10 million car mounts in the last 7 or 8 years, whether it's for GPS navigation or for phones and whatever it might be. So we really have a duty to promote this message of not scoping and driving, not streaming and driving. There was a lot of great things that happened recently. Just 2 days ago, you guys know Sergeant TCS Neal on, April 8th, he had a great event, which was worldwide pledge event where it was everybody trying to go out there and promote the fact that you shouldn't be streaming and driving. You can use 2 hashtags. Don't scope and drive is one of them, or don't stream and drive is another one of them. And if you would just go out there and take the pledge and say, I won't do this, but far too often, one of the problems I have is, and you guys know, I work with a lot of different influencers in the community. We partner, we build up great relationships. One of the challenges I'm facing these days is that so many of our amazing partners are scoping and driving, right? And so when I pop into their broadcast, I'm the first one usually who will call them out, and I hope that everybody else would call them out as well. And like Mitch said, you got to abandon those broadcasts when the people, say your point and say, hey, you really shouldn't be scoping and driving, but you got to abandon those broadcasts regardless of what the content is. And I have no problem calling it out. People like Scott Williams are still scoping and driving all the time, and Nicole Lopez. There's Pamela Booker. These are all great friends of mine in the community. I don't mind saying, hey, you guys, you really should not be scoping and driving, not only for the safety of yourself, but for the safety of others. And I don't know what, you guys, how much time do we have? When I did the Perry Union, and actually I'm speaking at the PerryCon, which is in 2 weeks in Atlanta as well, on the same subject. But I have 3 stories I'd love to share. I don't know what your time frame is, but I'd love to share these 3 stories of examples of insane people who were scoping and driving and their consequences. Do we have time for that, guys?
We do, but before you do, let me premise something, because Aaron, I think it's incumbent upon us to raise awareness as to this issue. What Jennifer and I don't want to do before you tell your stories is we're not that interested in pointing out people in particular on this particular scope. And the reason I'm bringing this up is a very good friend of mine who's a well-known federal judge. Okay, he's a very, very well-known judge here in Southern California. He has told me that 90% of the criminal defendants standing in front of him when it's a federal crime, it's a big deal, you guys, okay? It's not a state crime, it's not a misdemeanor or a felony, it's a federal crime. He said that 90% of the people in front of him are good people that made a bad choice. They made a bad decision. The other 10% are just really, really bad people. And I liken 99% of people who stream and drive, okay, are good people that are making a bad decision. And I think it's important that through education with the statistics that we're talking about, hopefully we'll raise awareness and educate these individuals so that they stop doing it. It's just not okay. Now, having said that, Aaron, please quickly share, 1 or 2 of your stories. I think Jennifer and I would love to hear them.
Yes.
Yeah, so some of these they have some humor, which is strange because, but it's so insane. You would never think that these things would happen while people were driving, but they do happen. The first one, in terms of the first story, it was very visible out there in the national news. It was from Lakeland, Florida, October 12th, 2015. We had a lady named, what was her name? Whitney Beal. She was drinking and driving and scoping at the same time. And so she says to the camera and to all of her Periscope followers, she says, let's have some fun. Let's have some fun. And she's yelling at the camera and acting very belligerent or very intoxicated, let's call it. And her followers are watching her. And she says, oh, I've had a lot of drinks. I've had so many drinks right now. I'm drunk. I'm in South Florida. And she says exactly where she is, actually. Her followers did the right thing, and they called 911. They said, hey, we got a person who's out there who's drinking and driving, and they're live streaming at the same time. You guys got to go chase her down and get her off the road. So the police did track her down. They found her driving with a front flat tire. She had hit a curb, and she was obviously very drunk. But here's what her punishment, and Mitch, as a lawyer, you'll appreciate this. This is really what I call the judge throwing the book at somebody for what they did. And for drinking and driving and scoping, here's what she got as a plea bargain. She got 12 months probation. She had to do an alcohol evaluation and treatment program. She had to do a 10-day vehicle impound. She had to have her driver's license suspended for 6 months. And they say as part of the punishment, she can't go to the bars and drink alcohol. I don't know how they enforce that. Maybe Mitch knows how they enforce something like that. But that is really throwing the book at somebody who is really acting quite stupid in the, with their live streaming, drinking and driving, obviously, is another topic. The second one is very similar. Another guy was from Oyster Bay, New York in March of this year. He was driving and drinking in New York. And he's driving his Lexus, speeding and weaving in and out of lanes on Ocean Parkway. Let's see here. Viewers called 911. Again, the Periscope viewers said, hey, this is not right. We got to make sure we get this guy off the road. And they stepped it up, which is great to hear that the community is the one who are being the proactive people out there and trying to stop this type of behavior. So they called 911. And this guy is talking to his audience and everything like that. He's drinking whiskey and doing a whole bunch of stuff. And what happened to him? Let's see here. He got arrested. They don't really say much more details, but this last one is really insane. And this here in Los Angeles, you guys see it on the news. We're known as, I think, the car chase capital of the world. We just had one this week, which was legendary, I guess. And so everybody gets into these, and there's almost a sense of fun in these, which is a problem. And I don't know how we overcome this problem. But the last story is from the UK. There's a young guy, and he's driving along, and he's being followed by the cops. and he's actually scoping and driving at the same time. So he's driving and he's got the cops chasing him, and he's saying, "Oh man, the cops are chasing me," this and that. But he's going like a madman, and he says, let's see what he says. He says, "Yes, sir, don't effing shoot me." He's still scoping while he's getting out of the car and talking to the cops, and he's it's insane. Maybe I can type in the link for this one, because the entertainment value is there, but obviously it's something that we need to be educating at the same time what not to do when we're scoping, and that is driving. And it gets really insane what happens here. He says at the end of it, "All right, guys, I got to bounce. I'm going to be arrested right now." And it's just crazy. But there are a lot of other stories like this. And unfortunately, the ones that we haven't seen so much, which we know are happening, is when distracted drivers are actually either killing others or killing themselves in car crashes. Right. So it's a very important message. We're proud to be leading the charge against the not scoping and not streaming and driving message that's out there.
And thanks for doing that, Aaron. It's one of these things where laws are changing across the country, and at the end, dd.org website, they have a list of each state and what the laws are in each state with respect to distracted driving. And the biggest obstacle I've heard in my capacity as a lawyer, when I speak to somebody in a state where it's not illegal to text, to use your cell phone, or to live stream while driving, is, well, it's legal in my state, so I'm going to do it. Okay? And I can tell you it won't be legal for long, especially as soon as, unfortunately, somebody is killed and that person is the daughter or the spouse of somebody who has influence with the state legislature or with a local judge. And that's how the laws get changed. Okay? It's when somebody gets affected, in a tragic way, the laws change. But that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it smart. Okay? The laws may not prohibit you from jumping off a 500-foot bridge onto a freeway below, but that doesn't make it legal. It's smart to do so, right? And Victoria, who I want to bring in, Aaron, if you don't mind, she had a little bit different take, but thank you for coming on and sharing your take. I mean, the fact that you manufacture items that both out of a vehicle and can be used inside a vehicle, really appreciate your support as a leader in the community with raising awareness. That's what it's all about, right? And
exactly.
Definitely.
We appreciate it, Aaron. Thanks for sponsoring the show, and we appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
Great show, guys. Thanks so much for the time.
All right. Thank you.
I think Aaron brings up a great point, too, is that we all have a responsibility when we see something that's not right. We have a responsibility to report it. And I think too often people see something that's not right, or they may see someone driving in Periscope, or for these examples, drinking, driving, and on Periscope. It'd be very easy just to turn it off and be like, I'm not going to touch that one. But the fact that people recognize that not only is this person's life in danger, but there are so many other lives and situations that could happen, that someone takes the time to call and report it is very important for all of us to take away. We have a responsibility there to each other.
Victoria is trying to come in, and we can't see you yet, Victoria, so keep trying. But she pointed out, unless I misread her comments, about maybe we should point out influencers who we see, as Aaron just did, consistently live stream and drive. I have no problem with that. I have sent personal emails to people that all of you know, asking them, sharing these statistics and asking them not to do it anymore. And it hasn't worked.
Well, you know what? Last week we had Brian Fanzo on the show, and I noticed this week he publicly posted that he had not live stream while driving in about a year and a half. And that was something obviously he was very proud of, and something he should be very proud of. But I love the fact that he said, hey, I've done it. Like this was me, but let me tell you why I've stopped doing it. I think that is just as important. You don't have to pretend that you've been perfect. And Mitch, I'd be interested on your take, since we don't have anyone on the seat right now. What are your thoughts about people video Snapchatting while driving, because in my personal opinion, I do believe that they are one and the same if you're videoing yourself. So I always make a point, if I'm on Snapchat and I'm sitting there, I'm like, hey, I'm at a stop sign or I'm at a stoplight. My car is not moving right now. But what is your take on that? Because I could see where some people, they're like, oh, I don't Periscope while driving, but they'll Snapchat while driving.
Anything in your hand is taking away from your attention to the task at hand, and that is driving an automobile down a road. A 5,000-6,000 pound instrument of destruction is what it is. And people don't appreciate how long it takes to stop an automobile. They don't appreciate how fast they travel, how far they travel when they take their eyes off the road. And for all of those reasons, regardless of the platform, regardless of the activity, singing in a car, looking away from the road, looking to the back seat to talk to your passengers. There's a very well-known celebrity that has guests that come into his car and they sing songs, and you've seen it on TV. What's the gentleman's name?
I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
He had Adele in there. Yeah, that was
the
awesome.
Whole thing. But you know, that's not okay. I mean, they're not. That's not okay, you guys. And so it's important that. And I got to tell you something. The reality is, before we bring Victoria on, the reality is it doesn't hit home until it hits home. As soon as something happens to somebody in your family, as soon as something happens to a neighbor, that's where this becomes a reality. That's when Joe Feldman, when his daughter Casey, who was 21, was hit in a crosswalk by a distracted driver. That's when he took the gloves off and decided, I'm going to tackle this problem head on, and God bless him for doing that. Victoria, turn the music down and tell us what's the deal in the UK? Are there a lot of distracted drivers in the UK?
Yeah, I was really interested to ask you that question.
Yeah, there's very strict laws though in the UK, so I think it is policed quite well in the UK. But what is getting to me is, and I am going to point out, look, I don't like to bash what I hate. I really don't. I would much rather be a person that promotes what I love. But when it comes to safety and it comes to people's lives, there's a difference here, right? Sure. And, you know, today I've watched somebody on Snapchat, a very famous 10X kind of guy who has got his daughters in the back of the car. Right. And is talking to them in one snap, and then turns around to the front of his car in the next snap, and he's live streaming the road, directing people to his website while he's got his little girls in the back of the car. And then he says, family's everything. Well, family can't be bloody everything if you're willing to risk their lives. Right. For snapping somebody and directing them towards your business website. Not cool, you know? Yeah. And I'm not trying to bash people specifically, but it's got to be pointed out because this person has got huge influence and people look up to this person and they want to be this person. And actually it's not okay to have your daughters in the back of the car and snap for a split second, you know. What will he be saying next? Oh, my family's everything. Well, they won't be when they're dead. So, you know, I feel very passionate about it. Like I say, I don't want to bash what I hate, but in this case it has got to stop. It's got to stop. Right. Well, I think the ultimate thing is, Victoria, like you were saying, I mean, this, you hate the fact that someone is putting their own life and the lives of others in danger. I mean, there's nothing more to it than that. Like people putting themselves and others in danger. That is what we're ultimately talking about today. And I mean, who's a fan of that? You know, nobody, especially when children are involved. Exactly. And I mean, this guy, I'm sure everybody knows who it is, but, so many people that he coaches, young people that are looking up to him to say, yes, okay. And do you know what? If you watch this, you know who you are. Stop doing it because it's driving me mad. I see it and I think, stop risking your children's lives. If you want to risk your own and be a prat, then do that. But don't risk your kids' lives or anybody else's for that matter.
I think you're speaking about somebody who I reached out personally to. Okay. And I, and the problem is when you have somebody of that magnitude that other people think they want to be like, okay, they're mirroring who this person is, then that's what they start doing. And I've seen this person's audience. I've seen this person's students do the same thing. Okay. And so it is a snowball type of effect that everybody needs to understand that it's not okay, and you have to lead by example. And, for the three of us, I'll tell you something. It starts with us. When we're in the car, our children are watching what we're doing. Okay.
Yeah.
And just Saturday on our way to an out-of-town soccer game, I had, MapQuest on the phone down on the side, and it was audio. I wasn't looking at it. I wasn't watching it, but I did look down once, and my son said, "Dad, you're distracted driving. Don't you have a show on Monday?" And he was busting my chops, but he was making a point.
Good.
And so, you guys, we have to lead by example, starting with our own families, starting with anybody else in the car. And then if you've got a career, a profession, a company where other people are watching what you're doing, you have to just be aware that they're going to mimic and duplicate and copy what you're doing. And Victoria, I get where you're coming from, and if you feel the need where you want to shout out this person's name so that we can all at least remind him not to do it, I'm okay with that, but you don't need to, and I'm not asking you to. But it sounds like it's really under your skin.
Yeah, I don't care. It's Grant Cardone. I think we all know the answer. So, if you're watching Grant, stop doing it. Yeah. It's not cool. So,
take one of the takeaways is you really want to, a lot of people, I don't really care what happens to me, right? I'm a good driver. Well, the reality is it's then I start caring about what's going to happen to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about that little girl that doesn't look the way she should, and she runs across the road to get to a school bus? If you're looking down at your phone, if you're talking to people in the backseat, you're not going to see that happen. And I don't care whose duty it is to be, should that child have looked both ways before pulling out? And maybe the child should have, but had you been paying attention, you would have avoided a very tragic situation from happening. And the reality is, though, you guys, is, it's awareness. And if you see somebody on a live stream, as I'm sure Victoria did earlier today, just click away and then reach out. If you're having a conversation, bring it up, but you can reach out to them privately. Yeah. You don't have to shame somebody to make your point. But on the other side of the coin, this is somebody that it's a repetitive issue over and over and over again. And it's not just, there are a lot of people out there that have this issue. So,
yeah.
And I'm not trying to just specifically call out Grant, because like I say, he's clearly a successful businessman. That's fine. That's cool. Respect in different ways. But I've got to say, speaking from my own personal experience, I've got someone very dear to me who lost their son, not through this issue, not through this at all, through an illness when they were young. And I still see the impact that has every single day that his son is not here with him anymore. Every single day, it beats him up. It's horrendous to see someone going through that pain. And to think that you could put somebody else through that pain is disgusting. It's not acceptable. I don't care how much money you make, how well influenced you are, stop doing it.
The analogy, Victoria, is we used to have this conversation, not on live stream because it wasn't around back then, but 20 years ago with drunk driving.
Yep.
Okay. And at one time when I was growing up, guys, I'm telling you, it wasn't frowned upon like it is today. It wasn't the awareness of the tragedy it was causing America wasn't talked about or as well known as it is today. And so about 20 years ago, we started talking about this, and we were reaching out to young men and young women in high school who were leaders at their high schools because other kids look up to them. And we were telling them it's not okay to drink and get behind the wheel of a car. And it starts young, and now we're having that same conversation, hopefully in good faith from the heart. We're not out to, I don't want to point out anybody, but it's one of these things where we need to bring awareness, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And real quick, Victoria, we're going to pop you out, but before you go, Mark Gawaith asked, can we report those that scope and drive effectively? I always honk and get their attention to tell them to stop. Victoria, how do you report UK drivers when you see them scoping and driving? Is there a 911 number? Do you honk? Yes. What do you do, or what can the general public do? And then after you're done, I'm going to pop you out and invite Jenny Q in.
Well, I tend to bang on the window and kind of swear at them. But,
I love it.
Like hand gestures and all kinds of things that go on. But no, I mean, you can obviously report them, you can ring the police. But I think, you guys tend to see quite a calm version, but I do get angry with these things. You'll quite often see me banging on the window with a bit of road rage. But if that is what scares someone, thinking, oh my gosh, someone's just seen me doing that, then, you know, like, let's all bang our fists on the windows, because I'm not like advocating like aggressive behavior, but like this has got to stop. And we can, you know, there's no point in sitting on the fence here. Like, this is a serious issue, and I'll call out anybody when it comes to this issue. So, yeah.
And cool. Jennifer, I want to get your thoughts, but real quick, Victoria, I want you to know before we open up the seat, from a lawyer's perspective, when I'm representing people and families who have been harmed by drunk drivers or distracted drivers, it gives me more motivation to roll up my sleeves and just go after them. I mean, I'm very unsympathetic about that. Just want you to know that. And so you guys need to understand there are consequences. I mean, at least here in California, not only can you be prosecuted for criminal homicide, you know, for murder, but in the civil courts, you can be prosecuted for wrongful death. I mean, it's a game changer. It's a life changer. And if you get a lawyer that's motivated to go after you, that's worse than having a pit bull, nipping at your ankles. You do not want that to happen. Hey, Victoria, thanks for popping in, kiddo.
So good to see you.
Take care. Yeah. Take care. We love you. See ya.
Bye. Love you too.
She is awesome. I just love her. What do you think, Jen? How do you handle, while Jennifer Q is coming in, how do you handle distracted drivers?
You know, that's a great question. My husband and I, we kind of go back and forth on it. We do like to honk. You know, we're that family. I kind of prefer, like, especially if I'm the passenger, like the stare down method, kind of like what our cop Mike was talking about earlier, you know, just like, hello, like, we see you doing this. But, you know, I'll be quite honest, like, I just don't know what would actually be effective for people. I think, unfortunately, now, chances are that most people aren't really embarrassed by it. You know, they're going to do what they want to do, that there's not much you can do to control it. And maybe that's me just being pessimistic about the situation. But I don't think it ever hurts to bring their attention to it. So whether it is like a nice little honk, like, hey, you know, because we can point them out a mile away, right? You know, like you're following someone and they're drifting back and forth at 2:00 in the afternoon. I mean, chances are they're not drunk. Well, it's always possible, but more than likely, I'd say 90% of the time, they got their phone in their hand by the time you pass them by, you know? So it's just bringing their awareness to it, that you actually see what's going on. But Jenny, I wanted to make sure Jenny came in, because as we've been talking today, Jenny has been involved in a distracted driving accident. And Jenny, if I read that correctly, you were the distracted driver. Is that right? Yeah. So tell us about it. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, and I'm not proud at all. And I'm just sharing my message because I want people to hear the thoughts that were going through my head just prior to it happening. Because I think that's where we can make real change, when we recognize the thinking that's going on before. So it was in 1999. And which is weird because I was driving when I was 10, right? So, but it was
that's a whole nother blab.
And you know, I laugh mostly because of nerves, because this is an embarrassing thing to talk about. But it was 1999. It was a bright, beautiful morning. I was traveling on business. I was, you know, in the traffic, and I remember now keep this in mind. I was thinking to myself, wow, these drivers are crazy. I'm not playing their game, because they were weaving in and out, right? Everybody was in a hurry to get to work. So I was being the safe one in my mind, because I was not weaving in and out. However, I was talking on the phone. So this was before we had the smartphones. This is before we could text or scope or snap. And all I was doing was, not all I was doing, I was talking on the phone. And then somebody came to cut me off. And because I was on the phone and I had to, it reduced my reaction time just enough that I went to swerve to avoid the accident, and I over swerved, and then I overcorrected, and then I rolled 3 or 4 times, landed in the median. And as I was coming out of unconsciousness, you know, I remember, I mean, they did the jaws of life. You know, I was on the neck, you know, they had the neck brace in the backboard, and
oh my God.
I don't know how long I was unconscious for, but I remember saying repeatedly, because when you have a closed head injury, you just say random things. Like, I didn't know what day it was. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know all those things, but I kept saying, this is the kind of thing you think never is going to happen to you. And I said that over and over and over. I couldn't believe it was happening, you know? And so we can kid ourselves all we want thinking that we're being safe or that we're the safe ones or that it's everybody else, but it's every single one of us. And every single time I get in the car, I have to remind myself, you would think that would be enough to jar me from even having my phone near me. And it isn't, because somehow we still keep thinking that it's not going to be us. I mean, just saying these words, I'm like shocked at myself, you know, but I thought I was being safe. That's the crazy part.
Well, Jenny, you know, I appreciate you so much coming on and sharing that story. One, because you were such a respected member of the live streaming community. I mean, you're certainly an influencer. And the fact, again, you know, just like I was sharing earlier about the public post I saw from Brian Fanzo, you know, declaring it'd been a year and a half since he had been driving and live streaming. So, you know, same goes for you coming on here to say like, hey guys, I've messed up before. Let me tell you how it happened. And like you said, you never thought it would happen to you. That is always the case. And the fact that you were judging, so to speak, other drivers being like, I am not that crazy, reckless driver. And in fact, you know, you were reckless in a way that you just didn't recognize at the time. And, you know, I think all of us have been there. All of us have been there. It's just that so many of us have been fortunate in not having what happened to you also happen to us. So I so much appreciate you sharing that story.
Thank you for letting me come on, because that gives it at least a purpose. And if this can stop one person from picking up their phone. And one thing I do every single time I'm in the car, because I do Snapchat a lot more than Periscope now. But if I'm snapping and the car's moving, I'm not driving. My husband's driving, and I will pan over and show his hands on the wheel because I want people to see I'm not driving. Yes, the car's moving. And if I have somebody that I am following, I'll back out of their snaps and I'll say, I couldn't watch your story because you were driving. Please stop.
I love that.
That's great. I love that.
That's what we all need to start doing, Jennifer. And well, wait, before you go, I think it's very powerful that you came on and shared your experiences, because that's the human nature that I've had to deal with for the last 30 years, and primarily with drunk driving. Okay. And people always think that they can, you know, it doesn't apply to me. I'm okay. I only had 3 drinks. I'm okay. I'm fine. And then they realize later on that they're not fine and something tragic's happened. And I will tell you that as a parent, and I think viewers should pay attention to this, if you have young kids and they're in youth sports and you're carpooling with other parents, be diligent and do your due diligence on who's driving your kids to practice, who's driving your kids to their next game. We had a case a few years ago where at 10 in the morning, a mother picked up our client's child to take him to a soccer tournament. Young kids, right? 15 minutes later, she ran a red light because she was under the influence of alcohol at 10 in the morning. And people were hurt, and it was just a life-changing event for everybody involved. That raises awareness to you know, be careful with people early in the morning at any time, whether they're under the influence. I think that same concern has to do with distracted driving today, especially with smartphones, especially with live streaming, especially with social media, texting, and using your phone while you're driving. We need to remind other parents who are in carpool situations, whether it's with our kids or maybe we're carpooling to work with other adults, that it's not okay to participate in distracted driving. And your story, Jennifer, is the end result. Even a good person with a great heart doing the right thing, something bad can happen, you know, and it can happen to all of us. Exactly. And I had this real quick. I want to bring Chris Stubbs on if he's still here, but I had the same situation. We're coming back from the motocross track. One of our dirt bikes was leaning sideways on the trailer, Jennifer. So I'm leaning out the side, you know, trying to get the bungee cord to tighten it up in the back of the truck while I'm driving, which is distracted driving. And while I did that, I turned around and I had gone over the center divider. And nobody was coming the other direction, but it scared the crap out of me.
Oh, geez. Yep. Yeah. But you know what, Andy, Mitch, you should always have people with the same name on at the same time, because you said, and so Jennifer, and so we were both thinking you're talking to us. We're like going,
I was. I'm messing with you.
Anyway,
did I distract you?
Anyway, thanks for letting me share my story. And you guys, don't scope and drive, don't snap and drive, just drive.
And Jennifer, how can we stay connected with you?
I am Jenny Q on Twitter, and Jenny Q411 on Snapchat.
Love it. Take care,
Thanks
kiddo.
so much. Okay, bye.
See you,
Bye, Jenny.
Bye.
Chris Chubb.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Thanks for all you're doing, Chris. Chris is a strong proponent of distracted driving. We really appreciate it, buddy.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry I'm late, guys. I was doing some snap swaps today, actually. So
surprise,
here we
surprise.
And,
imagine that.
Yes, a little bit of Snapchatting right here from the comfort of my own apartment. Mitch,
So-
you know, I believe in this cause very, very strongly. I've used I was on Jen's account. I've been on a number of different Snapchat accounts over the last month and a half. And I always try and mention that anytime you see me snapping in my car, I am not moving. You guys know last summer I traveled around the country by myself, which left me literally hundreds of hours. And I'll be the first to admit, just like Jenny Q just did, that I was a huge offender. Really, really bad. Meerkatting, periscoping, Snapchatting. And I think about that now, and I look at this website that Mitch Jackson sent me to a while ago, this ndd.org, and just see some of the stories of some of these kids who lost their lives. And I'm like, what the hell was I doing? What am I thinking that I'm putting myself out there and I'm creating this brand to set an example for young people around the country and around the world? And I'm the one who's holding up his phone, doing meerkat cameos and periscoping and just setting the worst example possible. So I want to own it 1,000%. You know, when I saw the show was happening, I knew I couldn't miss it because I am the worst. I was awful, and I am so lucky and so grateful just to be alive, because when you go on this website and you read the stories of these lives that are changed, it's real. And I will tell you that back in December, it became extremely real to me when a woman named Robin Carey, who is the CEO of Social Media Today, was killed herself in a distracted driving incident in Virginia, right near where our friend Brian Fanzo lives. Very, very well-connected woman in the social media space. Again, her name was Robin Carey, and she died just like that. She's gone because of some incident of distracted driving. So this is very personal to me, and it's very, very important to me. And so to be here to support this cause, Jen and Mitch, of course, because this is life and death. As everyone grows up with their phone in their hand, we need to be the ones to make a difference and say that this needs to stop now. This cannot happen anymore. And I have changed my personal habits, and if me being here can help one person change their personal habits, then hopefully we've made a difference.
Love
Absolutely.
it. Love it.
Absolutely.
Been there too, Chris. I mean, that's the thing. It's not what we were doing, it's what we are doing today and tomorrow. And that's the important message here. We are all part of a new global technology revolution that happens to involve mobile devices that can be easily used while you're behind the wheel of a car. And we're learning together. And Chris, what I did is I took down old videos that I shot over the years while driving to work. I'm trying to walk my talk. And if there's anything still out there, you guys, bring it to my attention and I will bring it down. But I'm with Chris and Jennifer in that whatever we've done in the past, that doesn't dictate your future. And what we do need to do is learn, educate, walk the talk, set an example for people that are watching our streams and people whose streams we're watching. Chris, how do you handle, you're very well known and you're asked to do a lot of Snapchat swaps and things like this. Based upon what we've talked about today, based upon what you've learned at the ndd.org website that you were kind enough to bring up, how do you handle it now where you didn't know before that somebody was snapping and streaming, and at some point in time you find out that that's what's happening? Do you reach out to them? Do you refuse to engage with them? How are you handling it? I'm just curious.
Man, Mitch, that is such a tough question.
It's tough, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't want to bring this back to my project, because we develop these relationships and they become so strong and so deep. And if you guys have watched any of my project, you see that there are a number of people who have snapped and drived on my account. And it's very difficult for me to say, like, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, stop, because I don't want to be that person that is trying to preach and tell people not to do certain things. But at the same time, you have to, So my project ends this weekend, and I've DM'd Mitch about this and KP Kelly and some of the other major advocates about this subject, that I don't know that telling people to stop is strong enough. And Jenny Q, yes, you're right. You absolutely set ground rules. But I don't know that just saying, hey, stop doing this is enough anymore. And so what I am very strongly considering doing is just unfollowing people and saying, I will not support what you do anymore. And if I can encourage other people to not support what people are doing, then maybe that's what starts to become real. You know what I mean? When we stop paying attention to you, and Gary Vee and everyone says this all the time, that our time and attention is more valuable than anything else. Well, if you're happy when you see that Chris Drubb is in your stream or watches your Snapchats or whatever, and you see that all of a sudden that's not happening anymore, and I'm not there complimenting you or swiping and sharing or retweeting, you know what I mean? Like maybe that is what it's going to take for us to take a stand and say, we're not going to put up with this anymore. And that's easier said than done, because again, these are real friendships that we have, and we could talk about that all day. But at some point, someone needs to be the one to say, I'm just not going to watch or listen to you anymore, and I'm not going to support you professionally or personally if you're engaging in these acts. I don't care how close friends we are. If I see you doing this, it's over. Because this is as, like, I know how close this is to your heart, Mitch, but this absolutely needs to stop. This isn't a joking matter. And if me not following you on Twitter anymore or liking your stuff on Facebook or answering your text, what it's going to take, then maybe that's what we need to do.
And Chris, I agree. I mean, I think that's, you're walking your talk. I have unfollowed people simply because they're streaming and driving. Yeah, I've unfollowed them. And I had one person reach out to me, how come you're not following me anymore? Because you're streaming and driving. And I don't think they really cared, but they reached out. So that raised awareness. And I think everybody on this show, Chris, that's something we should start doing. I mean, let's start doing that, and people will start getting it. Like you said, time and attention. If they don't get our time or our attention, they're going to have to change their activities, right? But Chris, before you bounce out, tell us about your project real quick, and include a link over in the chat so that people can connect, even though you're almost wrapping things up.
Thank you so much, Mitch. Today is day 45 of a 50-day Snapchat collaboration that I'm doing that included the lovely Jennifer Hoverstad.
That was my favorite.
She did such a fantastic job.
So
you can read more about it. You can read more about it at teamstrub.com if you click Strub Snap Swaps, and I'll be sure to put that. Chris McManamy, Victoria Taylor, so many others who are in the chat right now took part in this project, which was fantastic. We're wrapping it up this weekend with some really awesome, fun names. So check it out at teamstrub.com. You can add me on Snapchat, Chris Drubb. And thank you so much, Mitch, for providing me this opportunity. Jen, I love this show. You guys do such a fantastic job. And this is an incredibly important topic. So thank you for bringing the conversation and bringing the attention to what you guys are doing here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks,
right back at you. Take care, buddy.
You know, Mitch, as we've been talking, one of the things that comes to mind, a friend of mine that my husband used to work with for a long period of time is an alcoholic, recovering alcoholic. And, you know, he said that there were many times when he would drive home drunk that someone would see him, would call 911, try to get him off the road. He said, you know, those were the times that really saved his life, even though he got in trouble. You know, he had a lot of things that crept up on him because of that, but that's what saved his life. And so I think, again, coming back to the idea that this is not the responsibility of each of us individually in our own regards. It really is a community responsibility to be watching out for each other, to be helping each other when we see the other person messing up, slipping up, making poor choices, whether that's calling them out, or if we see someone who is truly recklessly driving, endangering so many lives that we need to pick up the phone and call 911 immediately to let someone else who can do something about it know. Those are the kind of decisions that we need to be making, very conscious, intentional decisions to protect this community at large and ultimately help that person making poor choices.
Amen. Preach it, Jennifer. I love it. You know, how you doing time wise? Because we're on a roll. I can stick around for a few more minutes. Well, okay. Couple of things. Clay asked about the Tesla's autopilot technology, and I'm a believer in most of the autopilot technology is better than most of the drivers that I've seen driving up and down the street. We'll see how that technology progresses. Sure. David asked a question about Are we open to any opinions or viewpoints on this, or just ones in support? And actually, we're open to having a conversation, pro or con. So, David, if you want to pop on, feel free to do so, because that's what it's going to take if you want us to discuss something that we haven't already discussed. There he is. Let's bring him on real quick. But yeah, it's just an interesting, we're all learning together, right? Interesting dynamics. David, there he is. How are you doing, sir?
Hi, David.
Hey, how are you? Jen, I think you were like the only North Carolina person on Blab I wasn't following, so I'm not following you.
Excellent.
We got to keep fellow Tar Heels up in arms around here.
So, David, you raised the issue here. Are we allowing any opinions and viewpoints on this, or just ones in support?
Well,
what are your thoughts?
Well, so here's one thing. So I've been guilty of it. I don't do it tremendously, but I can tell you as recently as last week, I actually jumped into someone's Blab and did it. I was 3 miles from home. I've got it propped up now. I don't read comments or any of that type of stuff. But here's my thing, and it's not that I'm not in support of it. It's just, and the whole distracted driving thing, I think I popped my thing in there a little too fast. I have been one who has vocally said often, there are people who should not have people inside of vehicles with them when they drive because they just don't pay attention. Right. I think this is just one area. I mean, I've seen the makeup and I've seen the trimmers, and I've seen people do really, really funky things. And as one whose father-in-law owns a trucking company, they have seen tremendous amounts of stuff. So I think it's good for the awareness. But as people who have streamed for a long time, do you take the responsibility of leading the way and not doing it? Or do you sit there and lead the way and say, well, if he's doing it, then I can do it too. And then it raises the whole, well, if he jumped off the cliff, would you do it too? And it's just, I don't know what to do.
Well, let me
I know what I need to do, but I mean, will it be enough? It's kind of like Yankee Stadium, and you can't smoke in there anymore. It's an open air stadium, So what do you do with all the? I don't know. I like the Tesla autopilot thing.
It's interesting, David, because I think every voice counts, and with every change, with every revolution, with every bit of awareness that's evolved over the years, at least what I've seen in business, it all started with one person. It all started with somebody taking a stand. And when I don't know if you jumped into the show at the very beginning, but we talked about 3 different types of distracted driving. We talked about visual, manual, and cognitive. Visual is anything that takes your eyes off the road. You reach down to your smartphone, you press a button. Manual is taking your hands off the wheel to change the radio button, to straighten your tie, to do your makeup, as you described. And then we have cognitive. It's any type of conduct. People singing in the car, turning your head to make sure your baby's properly strapped into their car seat, which you should have done before you started moving, and taking your vehicle out of park. All of these things are distracted driving. Live streaming is just one aspect of all the above.
Right.
And I think what's important is, as I think most of the audience is in agreement, is there's nothing wrong with taking a stand and creating awareness where oftentimes people aren't aware of how dangerous it really is. And unless
I can agree with that.
I know you do. And I wanted to have a dialogue both back and forth. If there's somebody that thinks that it's the best thing since sliced bread is to be able to live stream and drive, I would love to hear why they feel that way. But the reality is, if you can't fix stupid, and if somebody is stupid enough to live stream and drive and they kill somebody I know, or they kill somebody in my family, it's not okay. I don't care how stupid they are or how right they think they are. It's not okay. There's no excuse, especially with this information out there. So that's why Jennifer and I aren't taking a cavalier attitude towards this. This is a real problem. And it's a problem that needs to be discussed, just like drunk driving is a real problem. And,
you're definitely not. No, I mean, I heard it long before now. People were raising up in arms and bringing awareness to it months and months and months ago, as far back as June or July. One thing that I would be cautionary about, I think that Jim was heading towards was, taking the initiative of action of, if you see it and if there are laws in place to sit there and do something about it, calling 911. I would sit there and caution everybody, just be very, very careful what you do, because I don't know if you want to call it road rage or something, but there have been retaliations that have happened because people have realized what other people were doing to them. So you need to be aware of that as well. I mean, people shot and killed, because somebody followed them home because they thought that somebody was calling them in because they were driving drunk or texting or something of that nature. It has happened in those areas. So it's a crazy world.
You need to be smart about how you handle any situation. And David, I was down in San Diego 15 years ago with my wife, visiting my mom and dad for dinner. As we were coming over the Coronado Bridge, there was an obviously intoxicated truck driver, construction worker, weaving all over the place, almost hit 3 cars head on. He pulls over to the side and stops on the curb. We jumped out of the car. My dad and I ran over, yanked him out of the truck. We didn't know that he didn't have a knife, a gun. He wasn't going to come out swinging. It just didn't matter. It was the right thing to do. And for the way I was brought up, we held him down, and it wasn't easy. And we called the police, and he was arrested for a DUI, and I was a witness in his case. It was one of those situations that could have gone bad very, very fast. It was just the right thing to do. Okay, somebody's life might have been saved 5 minutes later. I don't know. And I get what you're saying, but I also think that we have to start taking a stand, and people need to do the right thing. And if you see somebody distracted driving on the road, write down their license plate number. Okay. Report them to a police officer. Report them to Mike Byers if you're in Southern California. He'll get an officer in that city to follow up and knock on that idiot's door. Trust me. So we're a community. I think by policing this as a community, we can educate, and we can influence, and we can create change. So, David, appreciate you being on the show today, buddy.
Thanks, David.
Stay in touch, okay? Be safe out there.
Bye, David.
All right. Awesome.
This is great.
Getting all worked up.
And I wanted to mention, too, I answered Rob in the comments, but, Rob asked about the legal aspects of using mobile phones while driving in the U.S. And for our other international friends, or perhaps stateside friends who are unaware, that is an issue that's decided state by state right now. So very well could be. And this is great for those of you that travel and drive a lot. The laws from state to state are going to change, and there are some states where you actually cannot be on a cell phone while you drive. You could be pulled over for that. And so, like I mentioned, in North Carolina right now, it's you cannot be texting while driving. However, you'll get cops on interviews that say it is very hard for us to prove that you are actually texting while driving. So, it's just one of those things. Watch out for it. I mean, just don't make stupid decisions. And as we're seeing too, and of course with this indd.org that Mitch has shared today, indistracteddriving.org, one of the biggest things is the fact that not only are you affecting yourself and other drivers on the road, let's get beyond that. If you're a parent, if you're an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, if you, for whatever reason, have the care of children 16 and younger in your possession at any time while you're driving, they are watching literally everything you do. And some of the pictures that I'm seeing, I have the website pulled up just to be able to access some quick facts. It's moms who are putting on makeup in the morning. And I see women on the highway, on Interstate 40, doing their makeup while they're headed wherever they're going, which drives me absolutely crazy. Or if you are reading through your emails as you're going to work, trying to get some extra work done, there truly is no such thing as multitasking when it comes to driving. Because as we've discussed today, things just happen entirely too quickly for you to be able to react when you're focused on doing something else. So just another important piece that we haven't necessarily harped on, but the fact of setting that influence for other people who may be in your car is very important to acknowledge as well.
Well said, Jennifer. And I have a feeling that in 2 weeks, when we have cops on live streaming joining us, we'll probably revisit this issue, because it's an issue it's getting worse. It's not getting better. Right. And I know Mike Byers, this is something where Officer Byers, this is close to his heart. And also with Arlene and Mark, 2 other police officers, Arlen, it's Arlen. We'll talk about it in a couple of weeks. Let's do this. Let's kind of change direction a little bit, if you don't mind. We have a really cool program next week.
We do.
Guys. And I'm going to put Jason Fall's link right there, but we'd like everyone to click on the link and join us. We have Jason Falls, who is a legend when it comes to social media, when it comes to digital, when it comes to the no BS way of combining social with your business. Jason is a gloves off, real talk type of guy. And you guys, if you don't know Jason, you're going to love him. And most of you do know Jason. He's a best-selling author. So click the link over on the right, RSVP for next week's show. It's going to be a good one.
It will. It will be a great one. And for those of you who joined in later, since we started the show, maybe you came in midway through, Gary Vaynerchuk did have to reschedule at the last minute. We found out end of last week that he had to reschedule. He is set for now July 11th coming onto the show, and he certainly had his most sincere apologies to us about that. But he will be rescheduled July 11th. And of course, you can find that on TheShow.Live. So make sure if you were looking for him today, he will be back with us in a few weeks. So, or I guess a few months really at this point. But yeah, he will be back. So tune in for him in July.
You guys, thanks for stopping by today. This has been just a wonderful conversation. Hopefully we can all help raise awareness when it comes to distracted driving and specifically live streaming while driving. Share today's show with your family and friends, especially the young teenage drivers in your lives. And if you have any follow-up questions or comments or concerns about anything we've talked about, reach out to Jennifer or me. You can just click on our links above and connect with us through Twitter or at the TheShow.Live website. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We would enjoy continuing this conversation offline, at least I would. And we really do value and appreciate you stopping by the TheShow.Live today, sharing your comments. And for those of you that jumped on and joined us by live via video, it means the world to us. It's been awesome.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.
Right.
Amazing conversation today.
Take care, guys. Have a great day. Be safe out there while driving and always make today your masterpiece. Bye, everybody.
Bye.